All right, well, welcome everyone to another edition of the Unpredictable Pipeline. In this series throughout 2020, really the second half of 2020, we've been talking to chief marketing officers who have been themselves navigating the uncertain waters and headwinds of 2020, helping their teams, helping their companies, helping their industries get through this year and kind of really accelerate into 2021. Very excited to have with us today Christy Marble, Christy, you joined your new company in the middle of this year. So we're not going to be able to talk about a pivot that you made at the beginning of the year. You joined you dropped right in the middle of the storm. So maybe just quick introduce yourself, your company, and what was that like?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Christy Marble. I'm Chief Marketing Officer of PANTHEON Systems. And we deliver web ops, open web ops platforms for companies all over the world, really focused on the United States, but from very small companies and individual developers or people that have their own websites to some of the biggest companies or organizations in the world. So it's definitely an essential place to be right now. Yeah. And I will tell you that when I joined PANTHEON in August or early August, late July, it definitely was a new world. I joined 100% virtual. There is not a single person in my company that I have ever met in person that I'm aware of.
Isn't that crazy? So, you're aware of, that's right.
That's right. So it's different. Definitely to be at kind of the stage I am at my career and have come up, gosh, I'll admit it, before the internet, and to have worked in remote offices where it was kind of scary to work in the remote office because people might not have perceived that you were working as hard as if you were visible at headquarters, to working in companies where people felt very much like people have to be in the office. This is much more like when I was at Concur and in the global space, where all day long I'm working with people in Germany or China or India or Australia, and may not in a whole year be able to travel to visit them. So you get really good at working virtually, at being active in chat, at coming into every meeting with your video on, just like you would walk into a conference room.
Yeah,
visible.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that remote work for a second, because it's one thing to be an independent contributor and to do your work remotely and sort of manage things. Being a leader of a large organization is a very different thing. I mean, you did it at Concur, Visi, the last company you ran marketing at, based in Vancouver. You're here in the Seattle area. Of course, this is back when you could get on a plane and go to Canada. So, I'm sure we're back and forth quite a bit. But from your Concur days as well as now, like, what are some of your best practices for leading an organization, not just of people generating results, but of people, through a time like this?
Sure. It's the hardest thing, just as with CMOs, we were all challenged very early on to figure out how to have an event where we could enable our salespeople to have that intimate interaction that they can have at happy hour or at a lunch. And that's very similar to a new CMO or a new any leader coming into the company right now and needing to do that remote. And I would certainly say I haven't perfected it. In fact, last week we did a psychological safety session, working session with my team, which is really fabulous to get the team together. And really, it was facilitated by our chief people officer, who does a wonderful job. And it was just nice to get in the room and talk about all those things that prohibit psychological safety, because it's important when you're in person. Yeah. But it may be even more important when you're virtual, and making sure that you're cognizant of the speech patterns and of knowing your audience online, and being capable of having really challenging conversations. Because as marketers, gosh, I think of what are the hardest things we have to do as marketers? Probably picking names. That's the strangest thing, but I always say picking a brand name for a product or a company. Gosh, that's one of the hardest things, because it's never the first brand. It's never the first name you choose. You have your big list, you land on one, and there's always some reason that you don't get that one, and it's one or two removed. And it's those hard conversations that you have where people have to be comfortable saying, you know what? It's not about the person who gave that idea or that name. It's about the name. I don't really like it. It doesn't fit me right. Here's why. You got to be comfortable talking about that. Or here, I really love it. You have to be able to emote and get those feelings out and be vulnerable. And one thing I did recently in a meeting where I felt like we were kind of all sitting, it was a small group, we were having a poker face kind of meeting where it's like no one's showing their cards and we really needed to break through on something having to do with growth, our growth strategy. And I just said, I was the most senior person in the room, and in this particular meeting I said, you know what, I don't know what grade, and our company does a little bit of this, so I'm modeling our CEO a little bit. And I said, I'm not sure what grade you all give yourself, but I give myself an F on this thing. And really made myself vulnerable and sincere, because I was really, I was not making it up. I wasn't just trying to be provocative. I really did give myself an F on this one particular thing. And I said, hey, we're all in this together. How can you guys help me? How can we all work together and raise up? Because we like getting A's, we like knocking it out of the park. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, once you get to a certain leadership position in your career, I mean, you're used to winning, right? You're used to being successful. You're used to sort of getting good positions and continuing to rise. And so, I find that people that have done that, they know how to face adversity. Knowing how to communicate with others within that adversity sometimes can separate sort of the good leaders from those that are going to sort of be challenged and sort of hit their ceiling. Your point about vulnerability is really, really important as well. I think it can be difficult for some people. It's difficult for me sometimes to admit in front of people on my team, in front of clients that I don't always have the answers, that I'm feeling anxious as well. But I remember there's a book by Robert Leccioni who wrote the 5 dysfunctions of the team. He writes these business fables. And one of his books was called Getting Naked. And the whole idea was being vulnerable and allowing yourself to be vulnerable as a way of building trust and credibility. And he says there's three things he says that most people are afraid of that they don't do, that if they would, they'd probably get better loyalty and trust. It was the fear of being wrong, the fear of sounding dumb, and the fear of getting fired. Right. And those feel like legit fears. And depending on where you are in your career and your level or whatever, those don't necessarily go away. But I think you're right. Like if you can, especially if you as a leader can foster an environment of trust where you can lead by showing your vulnerability, especially in a world where so many things are upended. You probably have people on your team like me that, they're trying to do a remote school with their kids. And, they're worried about all kinds of different things in their life, let alone just getting this campaign out. These aren't robots, these are people. And I think especially in this year, that means a lot. Does that change anything? Has anything you've seen this year change some of that in terms of how you're managing your team into 2021?
Oh, it definitely, that definitely does. That space that we have to give. I've always liked to talk about with my teams. Well, there's 2 things. One is I'm a growth marketer, so I'm focused on results. No doubt about that. No one who's ever worked with me I don't think would say that I'm not focused on results. But you have to balance results. That human aspect of being a team player to drive growth. In marketing, we don't get to be the lone shooter. We're always the assist. Right? Always. Whether we're in a consumer marketing space or in B2B space, which I've been in for quite a while, you're making the assist. Sales is always scoring, right? And we have to be really comfortable with that. We have to love that they could make that shot because we were able to get them the ball or make this deal or give them a bit of the competitive advantage. So for me in marketing, I really think with marketing teams in particular, it's not just your ability to drive results. It's how you treat people along the way. And likewise in marketing, the messaging, the way we deliver our messaging is also that important. You're seeing purpose-driven branding being such an important thing right now because people actually are really, I believe, starting to tune in to humans more than technology, right? We're maybe taking a pivot. If you think of the Strauss and Howe Generations book, where it talks about you go in one direction, you go all the way, pendulum swings to the other direction, I believe we're doing that. And I believe we're moving to really focusing on the humans, and that think, feel, do element of messaging and marketing is really critical right now. It's not just what we do, but it's how we leave people, how we make people feel as they're doing it. And I think of when you're buying a product, when I'm buying marketing products, I will, I'll help out this time, end of the year, I'll help out salespeople that I like, the people who've saved me if I can do that, if I can help them move up a contract, do things like that, I'll do it. And I've been in sales myself, and that's the kind of thing that we're humans in the end. No business is buying as an unveiled business. Humans inside that business are making or creating a relationship with someone or a team and putting their trust in you. So,
boy, amen to all of that. I think, a few things to unpack there. I think one, there's the people scoring the ball, scoring the touchdown. There's the people that made it happen, right? All the different people that made that happen, from the training room to the coaches. There's a reason why when running backs set a record or have a great career year, they buy gifts for their offensive line, because it was the blockers that gave them the window to be able to go and sort of, get yards and score. You also talk about the human side of what we're accomplishing. And I think I've seen more and more companies this year in their personas and the buying committee members not just talk about the job of the buyer and not just talk about sort of objectives and obstacles, but also call out emotions. Like, how does this situation make them feel? How would it feel if they exceeded this? I think that we're very clearly in a side of, and one of the silver linings of this year is that you get to see bats and pianos and stuff behind me. Like, you're literally seeing the more human side of people. Right. And I think that is who we are, no matter what industry you're in. And I think it's not about taking advantage of that. It's about accepting that and helping people achieve sort of the state that they need to be in, from a professional as well as from a personal place.
Yeah, absolutely. We are holding our team meetings. We are selling, we are meeting with our clients inside of their houses. Mm-hmm. And we have to be super sensitive to that. Yeah. I did have some, in prior lives or prior worlds, I had some really difficult conversations in my house at one point, where I mentioned to you, my office was being remodeled and I was holding fort in my dining room. And there were times where I would walk out of the dining room and doors closed, but come out, and my family would be in the kitchen, eyes wide open. Like, are you okay? How did that go, Mom? How'd it go, Mom? Because they're hearing that. That's I personally like it as a working woman. I'm setting I'm a role model inside of my house right now for my son and my daughter. Yeah. And so they will walk away with a different kind of experience, because they can enter my office any day and participate in a meeting and see what it's like to be a leader in business. So I'm hoping that they're absorbing a little bit of that as well for their benefit.
Yeah. I think my 7-year-old basically says I just stare at myself and talk to myself by looking at myself on a screen all day, which is partially true. But we're all getting used to it. Anyway, taking more time than I wanted to. Christy Marble, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
On another episode of the Unpredictable Pipeline, sharing some of your strategies and best practices from this year and heading into 2021.